Here we have a 2016 GMC Yukon, and we're going to put our Alpha Series xenon headlight system into the low beam headlights. You can see that this vehicle's got some nice LED daytime running lights, but they still got the halogen H11 bulb for the low beams, and when you turn that on, that doesn't match very well. So we're going to put our 6000K kit in here, and it's going to match the white LED daytime running lights, and it's also going to be significantly brighter. So let's take a look at the kit that you're going to get from Enlight. This Alpha Series HID system is going to come with two of our Alpha 35 rapid start ballasts. It will come with the second generation Arc Series HID bulbs. It will come with our Alpha Series relay harness, an anti-flicker module, and this relay harness is really nice because it's got 16 gauge power wires and then a 14 gauge primary wire, waterproof fuse holder, waterproof relay pack. And also, we use a genuine Hella relay module, which is very reliable and very robust. It would also come with a couple of brackets, mounting brackets and bolts for the ballasts. It will come with zip ties and everything that you need for installation. So to start off, pull the hood latch inside the vehicle, and then once the hood pops up, reach your hand under, and then just to the left of the center line, there is a tab that you're going to push towards the driver's side of the vehicle. Hopefully you can hear that click. Push it over, lift up, and the installation will begin from here. So in order to gain access to the headlight bulbs on the passenger side, we're going to have to remove the airbox. The driver's side has plenty of room, so that's going to be really easy to change. But first, let's start off by removing the airbox. Remove the connector on the mass airflow sensor by pulling up on this red tab, and then push on the black tab, and then gently wiggle the connector out. Set that aside. Next, grab a flathead screwdriver, and then just loosen the band clamp here. Don't take this all the way out, just loosen it enough so that we can slide off this hose here. And then just reach around this hose and pop it off just like that. There are 4 screws on the upper half of the airbox. 1, 2, 3, there's one down here, and 4, these guys. I'm going to use an 8mm socket to remove these 4 screws. There's one more thing to do, and that is to lift off this wire harness clip. And all you got to do is just wiggle it until it comes out. And now the airbox itself just lifts out. So grab around here, move it past any hoses, and then set that aside. You can also now just take the air filter, lift it out, and set that aside as well. Now the lower part of the airbox is just held in with a couple of rubber grommets with plastic pins that go through the grommets. Down here you can see that there's one, so just grab and lift up. There's one, and then there's another one on this back side here. You can just work your way around and pull up until you hear it pop. And then once you hear it pop, all you have to do is work the lower part of the airbox out from the cavity, and then set that aside as well. Here you can see that we've opened up some space to access the headlight assembly. Next, all we got to do is remove this plastic, kind of rubber plastic cover that's covering the headlight caps. And to do that, you can use a flathead screwdriver or like a panel pop tool to pry out these plastic clips. There's one here and then one right there. These are a little stiff, so it does help to have a panel pop tool like this versus a flathead screwdriver that you can wedge in here and then pry these connectors out. Here you see the headlight cap that covers the low beam bulb. Now just take your fingers, twist this counterclockwise, pop it off, and this exposes the headlight bulb, which is here. Next, to get the bulb out, push down on this tab, which is located right below this green piece in the center. Push down on the tab, or I should say push forward towards the front of the vehicle, and then down on the bulb, and that will come off, and I'll turn the bulb counterclockwise until it clicks, and then this guy will come out just like that. So here on the driver's side, same thing, come around, take the headlight cap off by rotating it counterclockwise, set that aside, push down on the tab that connects to the bulb, turn it counterclockwise, it's a little stiff, pop it out. Now what we need to do is to prepare the headlight caps and the HID bulbs. Now, because the headlight housing is a sealed housing with these caps, what we need to do is run the bulb harness through the caps. To do that, we're going to drill a hole with a Christmas tree bit or a stepper bit like this, or you can use a 1-inch or 25mm spade bit. It's actually best to drill the hole around 23mm if you can. That way we get a tighter seal around the rubber grommet. So basically the idea is you want to drill the hole as small as possible just so you can fit this connector in here. And actually what I do sometimes is I remove this, there's kind of a plastic holding clip on this connector just to make it a hair smaller. That way we can keep the hole as small as possible. So I'm going to do that and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the largest connector that has to fit through the hole. And usually what I do just to make it a little easier is I'll remove the silicone grommet here, and then I'll use a flathead screwdriver or some type of flat prying tool, and then just insert it in between the two halves of this plastic clip here to take it off. Here you can see I've separated this plastic clip, and this just makes the connector a little bit slimmer and easier to get through the hole. And also what I've done, there you can see I've drilled the hole already, and I've used a round file. So here's a round file, and I've just put two little notches in the side, on each side of the hole. And what that does is it just gives a little bit more clearance for these locking tabs to slide through the hole. Once you actually have the harness prepared, it should look like this. So make sure that you have the bulb and this the H11 connector on the inside portion of the headlight cap. Then you have this the 9006 female and the 2 amp connectors on the outside of the headlight cap. And when you squeeze the rubber grommet through, you want to make sure that you have one half of the wall on the outside and the other half of the wall on the inside here. And this is a nice snug fit, and that will keep moisture outside of the headlight. And then make sure that you do this with both the driver's side and the passenger side headlight cap. So now's a good time to remove the protective cover on the HID bulb. Be sure not to touch the glass bulb with your hands. The oil from your fingers will leave prints on the bulb, and that will either cause it to smoke or it can reduce the lifetime of the bulb. So now here on the passenger side, what we're going to do is carefully line up the HID bulb with the slot, and then there are 3 locking tabs on the bulb and the socket, and line those guys up, and then twist the bulb, let's take this guy off, and then twist the bulb clockwise to lock it in place. And when the bulb is correctly aligned, this kind of oval shape will be, the long part of the oval will be vertical in its orientation. And on the driver's side here, we will not be using the factory connector inside, so just leave it unplugged. And we're not going to use this connector either, so leave that unplugged. Don't put them together. And then line up the headlight cap with the grooves and then tighten it back in place. And now we have a nice sealed headlight cap with the connections coming out that we need. Here we are on the passenger side of the vehicle. Same thing. There are 3 locking tabs on the bulb. Line them up with the 3 tabs on the socket. And then once you get those lined up, turn the bulb clockwise to lock it in place, just like you're tightening a bolt. And then once you get it locked in place, the next step here is to take the factory headlight connector, which is this guy, and then plug it into this connector on the HID bulb harness. Now the polarity of this is sensitive, so we need to make sure that the positive and negative side of this connector are properly aligned. Now what we're going to do here is assume that the pink wire is positive and line that up with the green wire on the harness. Now, on your particular vehicle, it might not be pink, but I will show you later on in the video what to do if the polarity turns out not to be correct. But push that connection together, tuck it away inside the headlight housing, and again, line up the headlight cap with the grooves. You might just have to spin it around a little bit until it locks into place. Turn it counterclockwise, and there you go. And if you did remove the silicone seal and this black plastic clip here, do make sure that you put them back together. The Enlight HID kit will come with 2 stainless steel mounting brackets, and it's got 5 mounting bolts and a nut. We're going to use 4 bolts and the 2 brackets and use those for the HID ballast. So what we will do here is bolt the brackets to the ballast. So I'll do that and I'll show you what it looks like. So these 2 tabs up here are pre-threaded. That way you can put the bolts in here. And that's a 10mm socket that you can use to tighten them, or you can use a 10mm wrench, and do that for both ballasts. Here on the passenger side of the vehicle, we're going to mount the first ballast, and I'm going to use this bolt here as a mounting location. So we'll just take a 10mm socket, take that guy out, and then what we're going to do is take our ballast and slide the mounting bracket underneath that plastic piece and line up this second slot here with the hole. Put the bolt back in and then tighten it down. Once you've got the ballast mounted, what you want to do is actually twist the ballast towards you and put a slight angle on it. This will help with clearance when we put the airbox back in. Here on the driver's side of the vehicle, the location that I'm going to choose to mount the ballast is where this tie brace is. There's the tie brace runs to the core support, and there's a bolt under here. It's a little bit difficult to access, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove 1, 2, 3, just 3 of these tabs for now. That way we can lift up this core support piece and get under there. And to do that, you're going to have to separate the 2 halves of these clips here. You can put in a flathead screwdriver or a pry tool, and then twist it so you can separate the top half, and then what you can do is pull it out. You'll get the 2 pieces out like that. So take out those 3 clips, and then we'll move on to the next step. With those 3 clips removed, you can just flex this up enough to get a 10mm wrench in here. So take a 10mm wrench and then take this bolt out. Now prepare the bracket by using a pliers and then bending the bracket about 90 degrees right around the base of the second slot on the bottom there. So here you can see that I've slid the bracket underneath the tie brace and then put the bolt back in, and you can see that the ballast just sits here nice and firm. Now put your 3 clips back in. First put the bottom half into the hole and then push the top piece down to lock it in place. And if it doesn't go in, you just gotta pull the 2 pieces apart a little bit further. And it clicks into place, and that's it. So now is a good time on the driver's side to take the 2 amp connectors coming out of the ballast and then make the connection between those and these 2 connectors coming out from the HID bulb harness. This is what it should look like when it's completed. For the passenger side, go ahead and put the rubber cover back on. Push these 2 plastic rivets back into place and make sure that you feed the cables from the HID bulb harness through the cuts that are in that cover. And then the next thing to do is again take the connectors from the HID ballast and plug them into these 2 connectors here. Now let's move on to the relay harness. Now a lot of people may complain and say, well, why do we need a relay harness? You know, what's the point? There are a lot of other cheaper kits out there that you can buy that don't have a relay harness, and they claim that it's not required. Although you'll probably be able to plug them in and they'll light up, we always use a relay harness when we can with our HID systems for several reasons. One being it always provides proper power to the HID ballast. If you starve HID ballast from current, it causes them to it causes the lifetime to shorten as it puts excess stress on them. With the relay harness, we get to draw power directly from the battery, and drawing power directly from the battery instead of the factory headlight plug is always going to give us an ample supply of power to the ballasts. Not only that, but it protects the factory electronic system from the HID system. So when you use HIDs, the startup current is higher than a normal halogen bulb, and the factory wiring system is not designed to handle that type of startup current. So for those reasons, protecting the factory electronic system and also protecting the HID system, a relay harness is mandatory. So let's just walk over a couple of the connections on this Alpha Series relay harness. So starting from the battery, where you see this waterproof fuse holder, there's going to be a 14 gauge copper power wire that comes out, and this is a ring terminal. So this is going to go to the battery positive terminal. And then in a similar length wire, you're going to have this black cable here that's got another ring terminal coming out of it. You'll see that there's two ground wires there. This is going to go to the battery negative. So we'll put those guys out of the way. A couple of other connections. There will be an anti-flicker module that looks like this. And this connector here, this will effectively plug into the factory headlight connector on the passenger side of the vehicle. So we'll walk over that in a little bit, but essentially what happens here is when you turn the headlights on, it sends a signal to this to turn on the relay, and all the relay is a fancy switch. It says, oh, there's an incoming signal, let's switch over the contact in there and draw power from the battery. And from there, the power is sent out to two other connections. One here, which is the power connector for the HID ballasts. And there's a long cable here, and this is the far side. In this case, this will be the driver's side power connector for the HID ballast. And one more connection, there's a secondary ground on the driver's side of the vehicle that helps maintain optimal connectivity. The last nut and bolt that comes with the kit is for this bracket here, so you can use that to mount the relay. Okay, to install the relay harness, let's start off with the battery connections. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this ring terminal into a U terminal, and all you need is like a side cutter or a pliers with a cutting head on it like this, and I'm going to make two cuts to open up these ring terminals. I'll explain why in just a moment here. So now I'll take the positive power wire for the relay harness and also the ground wire, and what we're going to do is feed it underneath the coolant reservoir tank following the factory harness that's there, and just feed it through to the other side closer to the battery, push the fuse underneath and everything, and then come over here on the other side and then grab both of those two wires. So bring the ground wire up, just like that. So once you've cut the ring terminals, they should just look like this. And the reason why we do that, most newer cars these days, the stud here that we are going to mount these ring terminals to on both the positive terminal. So here's the cap. All you have to do is lift up here on the bottom to undo the tab, and then this exposes the positive terminal of the battery. But as I was saying, these studs here, they are flared out at the top. And if you just try to take the nut off all the way, it's going to bind up here, and that can cause problems. So in order to avoid having to take the nut off all the way, all we're going to do is just back it up a few millimeters and not take it all the way off. Then with this U-terminal that we've now created, we can slide on the connection. So right now, take a 10 millimeter socket or a 10 millimeter wrench and just back off this connection here a few millimeters. And now what you can do after you've loosened this up is just slide the terminal connection onto the stud, and now what you can do is tighten it. When you are loosening and tightening this nut here, be careful not to make electrical connectivity between your wrench or your socket wrench and anything else in this area, or else it will short out and it'll probably make a big spark and scare the crap out of you, so don't do that. Just take care when you're removing this and tightening it back down. So once you get that snugged down, just feed the wire over to the corner here and angle it like this. Now just take the cap and then push the cap back down until you get it to lock on the tab on the bottom. And now we'll move on to the next piece, which is to loosen up this nut here. You can see I've loosened it already. And then feed the terminal for the ground cable onto this stud here. And then tighten up that nut. So now that I've got this tightened down, there's just one more thing I want to mention. Now, personally, when I'm doing installations on newer vehicles especially, I try not to break the electrical connectivity between the factory electrical system and the battery. So you can see the big ground cable coming out here, and then there's going to be a bunch of power cables that go back into this region here. And on all these newer cars, if you break the electrical connection between the battery and the rest of the vehicle, you have to reset a bunch of stuff, and it just becomes a bit of a hassle. You got to reset sometimes the window computers, the infotainment system, sometimes there'll be things on the dash and all that nonsense. So I always try to keep the battery always connected to the vehicle at all times. That's why I don't take the actual terminal off the post of the battery for either the positive or the negative. So yeah, that's it. And now what we can do is move on to mounting the relay. So actually, to mount the relay, I'm going to use this guy here that we removed before. I'm going to take it out again, but I'm going to take out this plastic rivet here. And what I'll do is I'll take the relay pack here and I'll put the plastic rivet through both this metal bracket and this rubber cover here, and use that instead of the bolts that come with the kit. Here you can see that I've got the relay mounted. You always want to make sure that you mount the relay in a vertical orientation, so up and down, not hanging off to the side or upside down, or else you can get water that pools in the bottom. And even there's a seal here, if you actually get water that collects there, it can seep through. So make sure that you mount it vertical. And also what I've done is that there's a factory harness that runs along the bottom here and then kind of comes up into this area, and I've taken a zip tie and then tied the base of the relay pack where all the wires are coming out to the factory harness. And this makes for a nice kind of factory looking setup there. So while we're over here, let's go ahead and make the connection between the relay harness and the power connector on the HID ballast. So here you can see that I've already made that connection. And then also what you want to do is take a few more zip ties and then secure all of these wires along this factory harness location where my finger is here. So also what I've done is I've taken a zip tie, and there's a little hex, like a little hex hole in the fender well here, and I've just used the zip tie to secure the ballast power cable down to the fender well. When you do this, you don't want anything moving around or flopping around, so use the zip ties to make sure you secure all the wires. So the next thing to do is to take the anti-flicker module and plug it into the HID bulb harness that's coming out of the back of the headlight cap that we set up earlier. Now this is the portion that is sensitive to polarity. So if you plug everything up, you hook everything up, and then you go to turn the lights on, and neither one of them come on, this is the connector that you need to check. So you need to make sure that the polarity of this connection inside the headlight cap is correct. If it's not working, if the headlights are not working, take the connector that's inside the headlight cap, flip it around 180 degrees, and then plug it back in. That will reverse the polarity at this connector here, and that will allow this module to function correctly. So once you've made all the connections on the passenger side of the vehicle, and you've got all the wires kind of tucked away neatly here, now what you want to do is run the long cable of the relay harness. Here you can see I've routed it underneath the factory wire loom here, up and over, and underneath this there's a pocket in here. You can see where the wire goes back, it comes out on the other side, and then runs across the top of the radiator all the way down over here. And also what I've done is I've made this connection between the input connector of the ballast and this power connector that we just ran from the relay harness. One more thing to do is to mount this ring terminal, which is the ground cable for the ballast on this side. So to mount this last ground wire, what I'm going to do, well, what I already did is I removed the factory bolt that's in here. It looks just like this. And I removed this one here. And actually what I'm going to do is take the extra bolt that we have with the kit and use that through the ring terminal here. Oops. So use that through the ring terminal and then put this bolt back into the pan that's down here. And the reason why I'm doing this is the bolt that comes with the kit has a better electrical conductivity than these kind of black oxide coated factory bolts. So this will give you a better ground for the ballast on this side. So just gently snug this down. Don't over tighten it because there's not as many threads going through to the base as there are with this one. But snug it down firmly, and then you can just kind of zip tie the wires together and keep it away from anything moving. So that's it. That's the last electrical connection that you need to make. So to clean up, again, make sure that you secure everything with zip ties. What I've done here is I've taken the igniter for the ballast, which is where my finger is, and I've used the zip ties to mount all the cables here through this hole here, and then also use the zip tie to secure the wires to the cable for the hood latch. And that way nothing's flapping around, nothing's moving, everything's secure. Take your time, don't try to rush it, don't leave things hanging around. That can affect the quality of the installation and potentially cause some of the parts to fail if they're vibrating too much or getting banged around. So that's it. Now you may be asking, okay, well, what is this guy here? Why is this left over? This is left unused. That's why we didn't make the connection on the inside here, on the driver's side of the vehicle. This is just not needed. So just leave this guy here and tuck it away. So that's it. Once you get to this point, go ahead and test the lights. So don't put the key in the vehicle. If you put the key on, it's going to do its systems check, and we haven't put the airflow sensor back in, so it might throw a code or something. So just go ahead, turn the headlights into the on position here, and let's go take a look. You can see we've got the lights on. We got a nice crystal white 6000K light. We get a very good match between the factory LED daytime running lights and the low beams here. So check both sides, both the passenger and driver side, make sure that both sides are working. And once you have verified this, now we can put everything back together. Now put the lower part of the factory airbox back in. There is a pin here, and then also a pin on the left side here. And you got to line those up with the holes that are which are in the baseboard. It takes a little bit of monkeying around and wiggling just to make sure that you get them lined up perfectly. But once you get them lined up, push straight down. You can do one at a time. Push this one down, then push the one that's on the left side down. Secure it in place. Make sure it's not loose. And then go ahead and take the air filter. And then put the air filter back on. Just let it drop into place. And now what we can do is grab the top half of the airbox and put that back on as well. So once you've got the 4 screws back in place, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this guy down here is a little bit tricky to get to because there's a metal hardline that's there. And what I did is just flex the airbox with my hand, just kind of going like this, and giving a little bit of extra clearance so I can get my socket down there. So you see that movement there. That's how I got that guy back in place. So now grab the mass airflow sensor connector, click it back in place, push the red tab down to lock it, and then come around here, grab the gray rivet, put it back into the hole. One more thing to do, just tighten up this band clamp with a flathead screwdriver. If you're interested in purchasing this kit, go to www.enlightauto.com, go to the Select Your Vehicle section and find the GMC Yukon. In addition to the xenon headlight system that we just installed today, we'll also have some LED fog lights. Check out our other video to see how to install those. Thanks for watching.